For the first time since the pandemic, the number of first-time filers for jobless benefits dropped below 500K, 498K to be specific. The number of Americans on some form of government jobless benefit remains above 16 million. Over 16 million still claiming on all UI insurance. Continuing claims, unemployment, for April are 3.69 million, compared to 3.62 million expected. The real number is one hell of a lot higher than 16 million. As the dole comes from almost every sector of modern government. How many actual entitlement programs are there, does anyone know? There are at least 16 million illegals on the dole. 500,000 new claims for unemployment is not a sign of a healthy economy. Why are companies still letting go at such high numbers if the economy is improving? Because it isn't. 52 million unemployed, 205 million working-age Americans multiplied by 26% unemployment, as per Shadow Stats. After the 1929 crash, the unemployment was above 20% for 4 years. We have had 20+% unemployment since 2009 by the same measure according to Shadow Stats. No real reforms have been made except the push towards more communism. Now we are looking at hyperinflation and communist price controls. 500K is a level that shows the labor market is shrinking. The economy is still badly impaired. Cries for another stimmy are coming. The economy will be in full delirium tremens in 3 months. Several weeks' worth of data are clear. Trillions in deficit, runaway social programs, social infrastructure investment, 20 million workers drawing unemployment benefits, yet the unemployment rate is reported as only 2 percentage points higher than 2 years ago when the economy was reported to be performing better than any time during previous 50+ years. Material shortage of all types. Highest inflation in 50 years. Highest budget deficit in history of the modern world. The economy is stalling or slightly down. House of Cards is about to blow over. Trillions spent and nothing to show for it but debt for future generations. The US economy is sucking wind, while stonks, casino, are at all-time highs. Hard to wrap your head around this dysfunction. The market is a complete joke. Fundamentals, revenue increases, upgrades, incredible news and so on, and none of it matters anymore. If you're positioned as well, they are out to tank it. All that can be said about all of this is, congratulations, Jay. You've officially blown the biggest stock market bubble in history. In Weimar, people kept thinking they were getting rich selling assets at inflated prices. Fast forward a year and the German mark was worth less and less and the asset prices were going up and up. Stocks and crypto are bread and circuses keeping people entertained collecting their unemployment and UBI as they make many times more money than they can working. Who is going to keep the lights on and feed us, immigrant workers? This will not end well. This never-fed outrageous theft and this particular bubble, widely considered the greatest bubble in modern history, is that much more impressive, and even scarier, when you consider that it was blown during a solid year of continuous, mostly peaceful protests, and 75% of the entire US and world were locked down for a solid year. The Fed Bank now basically owns the stock market. They will truly own the market when they are forced to buy stocks, ETFs, to prevent a total collapse. This is coming, just like in Japan. Rates cannot be allowed to rise or the Ponzi collapses overnight since debt has gone off the charts and more on the way. It has taken trillions of dollars to inflate the equities and housing bubbles and a crash is almost certain. There is no way back and the lemmings will lose it all. There will be homeless tent cities from coast to coast and millions will never work again. Stimmy checks forever to try to keep the cities from burning as unpaid rents lead to inevitable evictions. Communism will sound great to desperate millions. The CCP created mild but effective pandemic and our sick leftist media ran with it. Fear gripped the fools and our country was shut down. We were already circling the toilet bowl, having shipped most all our manufacturing to China in return for cheap goods. The CCP simply hit the flush handle, and away we go down the drain. Fools will hang on to their stocks so certain the Fed has their backs and will take big hits. Many landlords cannot pay the mortgages, and the banks will fail from unpaid loans and, of course, demand bailouts. This is all so clear, yet people want to believe Fed, happy talk. They have to lie to prevent panic. Plan now for the great darkness ahead. No God, no nation. MMT is a subtly different economic regime worth studying closely to see what the next decades will bring. The state issues money and taxes the citizens like in feudal days of lore. The state controls the economy, expansions and contractions and taxation. That is subtly different from we the people electing Congress to create money that circulates in a free market. The need for media control, authoritarianism and all of government approaches make sense within the framework of MMT because the economy is based on control rather than freedom. Leaks need to be plugged and issues dealt with efficiently because this highly tuned economic system is as fragile or robust as the control over the populace. Happy studies. Among the business categories, retail stores had the highest number of total closures of more than 27,000. Restaurants had an exceptionally high share of permanent closures, with 53% of the closed restaurants saying they won't reopen, according to Yelp. 41% of businesses have shut down for good during the pandemic. As of today, 140,000 businesses listed on the Yelp review site remained closed. By far, retail shopping was hit the hardest. 1 in 4 restaurants won't reopen after the pandemic. Businesses with fixed costs and low margins lose money even with small dips in revenue. That's why the smarter ones have already closed down. Many others will be forced to when the math becomes clearer. Paradoxically, all of these happened because we reopened too early. This story breaks my heart because small business owners are the backbone of this country. It shows how things are getting worse. Real estate is a great economic indicator. It keeps getting worse and worse on business. All my fellow business friends are in deep trouble going forward. Most are wiped out. Most are hoping for another PPP-style grant. There will be no returning from this for so many. It's devastating. They'll throw them a universal basic slave income, inside a social system slave score, as long as they do as they're told. Oh, isn't the future looking so prosperous and magical? The concentration of the economy. Destruction of the currency and of the middle class. This should free up more people to riot, loot, and burn buildings down. It's a growth industry. Plus, it is really bullish for the market. Once we settle into an actual depression, the Fed will buy stocks and buy everything in sight. And then they put everyone on guaranteed monthly incomes. People can sit at home, get fat, and buy crap online since the only company left will be Amazon. You may now be able to fully put 1 plus 1 together as to why 500,000 people filed for unemployment this week. We are immersed in the Second Great Depression, where 500,000 job losses will happen weekly into the known future. We are at the start of a great generational depression. Commercial and residential real estate is collapsing as are other big-ticket purchases. When the debt markets collapse from complete absurdity, how many trillions of fiat creation will it take before no one wants them? It's a bad time to live in urban areas. My advice is to prep and moves out. Be smart. Stack cash, stay out of debt, invest wisely, diversify. Patronize your local small business owners every chance you get. Farmland far away from a major city, livestock, garden, freshwater, guns, ammo, more ammo, likewise neighbors. The cities are done, and the only way they will be able to limp forward is by raping the productive class to try and spread the pillage between the parasite lazy pigs and the parasite government workers. There will not be enough money, and the fight over the scraps will be violent. Only an idiot can't see what is coming in the big cities, and it is not unlike Mad Max. The cost to service our debt was more than half the GDP for the first time in history. And that was before the current round of money printing. Since we have had a 46% drop in GDP from last year. Now, somewhere around 100% of our GDP, or more, is going to service debt. This will be a 10-year global depression. This pandemic is a perfect cover-up for the Great Reset. Next is all digital currencies say bye-bye to paper. It is all about creating a giant sheet show, like tossing a smoke grenade into a crowded room in order to cover their escape. That is what all this is about. Thousands of filthy rich thieving bastards are making one last heist and fogging the place up for a perfect getaway. The left is just the most retarded for falling for it so hard, but the right has fallen for it too, just not quite so pathetically. The economic Ponzi scheme's final collapse was in September 2019. Everything since then has been nothing but attempts to distract us from that and kicking that can just a few more times. It's done. Stick a fork in it. You don't spend like drunken sailors for 4 to 5 decades, governments, corporations, and individuals, with the Fed rigging things as best they can to hide the real problem of the Western world exporting their own jobs to people that make essentially zero in other nations. Which makes Western buyers feel good because things are a few cents cheaper, and giving astounding school loans for degrees that are worthless, which gives rise to the large uselessness of staying connected, which has stolen mindshare as to real creativity and real work, and allowing the erosion of public education to the point many openly disdain real education, without having to pay for it. But at some point, there is a price for these decades of laziness and misguided action. So with nothing big in people's lives, never feeling a part of something useful and worthy, the least creative and least capable are only able to follow the "it's someone else's fault" meme and riot. The final genuflect to the "can't do" attitude. The future is here. Bill is past due and the world's insolvent. Fed is flooding the world with liquidity to mitigate systemic failure. Debt payments of all sorts are being temporarily suspended to prevent the underlying debt from being declared no good and becoming a liability. We have already passed the point where the problem of servicing the national debt can be solved without violating the principles of a free economy. That is to say, for example, through a non-debilitating level of taxation rather than a confiscatory capital levy. Our economy will be forced into an increasingly totalitarian mold, and the freedoms which we are presumably arming to defend will be lost. Financial repression and inflation will lead to the same result. However, this will sustain asset prices. Yet the key element of inflation people forget is that your cost of living goes up faster than your assets go up. It is very hard to believe today that food, rent, insurance could one day go up faster than your income. Well, that's inflation. Both income and prices go up a lot. But you'll always be behind. The Fed and other centralized banks killed the free market. Yes, and there is nothing you can do about it. They didn't care about rules, hell. They didn't care about you and me. They won't let the economy regulate itself. The times of a free market are gone since 2008, but no one talks about that. The media doesn't cover it in the slightest bit. The only thing that will happen is like it happened before. In 2 or 3 years from now, another Hollywood blockbuster, like The Big Short, will try to explain to the greater public what just happened to the world and how stupid regular people are. 2008 we entered a dictatorship. It's dictated that the markets know only one direction, it is up. We lost a right, and that revoke strikes twice since you and I and everyone with a rational mind know the market should correct in a big matter, and that includes us to make money with the tools we have.